तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पुरुषत्व देशधारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरु विश्वकृपा सिन्धुभ्यो च
Recording in progress.
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Welcome everyone for the session on Shakti Tattva. We all grew up hearing, especially close to Maharashtra and Karnataka, Jai Bhavani, Jai Shivaji. And when you read the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, when Sri Krishna appeared and he was taken to Gokul, and Nanda Maharaj comes back with the baby, right? And when she is placed next to Yashoda, Devaki, then eventually Kamsa got to know, and he comes there, and Devaki was pleading to spare the baby who was daughter. But Kamsa, being so absorbed in matter, bhava, he could not recognize Bhavani. So he lifted the baby to strike her to the ground, and the baby flew from his hand, manifesting in her many hands carrying different weapons. Right? And when this happened, we read in the Bhagavatam, it is also explained, it was ordained, it was requested, and Krishna explained what would happen. This Devi, Yogamaya or Shakti, she would manifest in different forms all over Bharata Khanda and beyond also. Srila Prabhupada explains that Durga is celebrated as Kali in Kolkata. Those who are from Mumbai, I don't know how many of you visited, he writes she is called as Mumba Devi. That is how her name, the city's name comes as Mumbai. If you go to Kanyakumari, if you go to Vaishnava Devi, there is no place in the Srishti, the manifested creation, where the Bhavani or Durga Devi is not worshipped. People worship her in a different way, but they will worship. Right? So therefore, when we study carefully, Shakti and Shaktiman, Srishti and Purusha. So Purusha is very difficult to see. We don't get to see the Srishti Karta. But we are able to see the Srishti. Shakti and Shaktiman. Shakti we are able to see, but Shaktiman we are not able to see. Creation is seen, but creator is not seen. That is the beginning of Shakti's Kripa. Right? That she is so accessible, she is so visible that one can experience her. Of course, generally when people see Prakriti, the tendency is to exploit. The tendency is to enjoy. Whether symbolically, psychologically, or Pauranically. Right? Ravana, he dared to kidnap who? The personification of Shakti, Bhumi Devi, the personification of goddess of fortune, right? Sita Maya. He dared to kidnap her, right? He dared to kidnap the goddess of fortune. Similarly, some Rakshasas dared to kidnap the Veda Mata. Similarly, Shishupal, for that matter, who was none other than previously Jay and Vijay only, Ravan only. So that Shishupal, what he was trying to do, that Shishupal was also trying to dream of marrying Rukmini Mata. Who is she? She is also Shakti only. And where was she taken by Krishna? Krishna picked up Rukmini Devi from the temple of Amba Mata, Bhavani. Right? In the Bhagavatam 10th canto, we read this story. Rukmini wrote a bold letter to Krishna. The first love letter, the official love letter was written, and she had somebody to help her, a Brahmana, and that is what the duty of a Brahmana is. Basically, a duty of a Brahmana is not to separate from the society. A duty of a Brahmana is not to be isolated from the society. A duty of a Brahmana is to connect the society. Rukmini Devi wanted to marry Sri Krishna. He carried her message, going through all the difficulties and challenges, met with Krishna. Krishna read the letter. He said, Shakti and Shaktiman. Again, they're about to be united. But the process of uniting in this world happens through knowledge, Brahmanatva. And he brings back that letter, the message of Krishna to Rukmini. She was eagerly waiting. Right? And they met. Rukmini Devi came to Amba Mata's Mandir. Those who have not visited, if ever go on this side near Nagpur, there is a beautiful temple on the bank of Vardha, the river. And from there, Krishna kidnapped her. Right? He picked her up and then he brought her. So we see that Shishupal wanted to marry her. Ravan wanted to marry her. Ravana kidnapped. And what did Prakriti do to Ravan? That same Ravan, when he came back as Shishupal, ye yatha mam prapadyante. Of course, you cannot kidnap Prakriti. And therefore, the Puranic literature explain there are two versions. For the storyline, Sita Maya was kidnapped. For the understanding about Prakriti and Purusha, you cannot kidnap her. Right? So Krishna gave the dose to Shishupal where he was eagerly awaiting that I will marry her, and he kidnapped her. So the point we are making here, Prakriti, she is supposed to be served. But what happens generally, rather than serving the Prakriti, we try to exploit the Prakriti. Mohini Ashrita, right? Daivi Prakriti, or simply Prakriti. When we try to exploit her, what does it do? It creates Hamas. It creates exploitation. This is my land. In fact, in the Bhagavatam, it is explained, there is the Bhumi Gita. Again, what is Bhumi Gita? Bhumi Gita is nothing but the song of Devi only, the song of Durga only, the song of Shakti only. And she is explaining many people now and before, they came to this land and they called themselves as Bhumipati. They called themselves as Nirapati. Everybody claimed proprietorship over me. I am here, but they are not here. Whether, as I said, psychologically, symbolically, we understand you cannot kidnap Prakriti. You cannot exploit Prakriti. And therefore, that Prakriti, according to our perception, according to our mentality, she manifests differently. And that is what we try to discuss today. Shakti Tattva, in the highest evolved concept, appears as Ladhini Shakti. right? And that same Shakti Tattva in a practical form where we can actually visualize, experience, appears as Prakriti, then that very Prakriti becomes Durga, then that very Durga becomes Durga. And therefore it is explained, this Prakriti, this material world, your Bhava, this Bhava, how does it operate? It operates in two ways. That if I try to settle down here forever, trying to control, right? Be a lord of this Prakriti, then that Prakriti appears us to be Karagraha. We are bound by that Karagraha. Repeatedly, again and again, every time. Not only about story of every lifetime, every moment, bound by that. But if the perception, the Trishtikon changes, that very Prakriti becomes Durga. What is Durga? Durga is a fortress. Right? When we choose to close the door from inside, then she becomes a fortress. And therefore, the Jai Bhavani and Jai Shivaji, the exclamation where all the Marathas and beyond use that statement, even now, Indian Army, especially the Maratha Light Infantry. I was born in that town where the Maratha Light Infantry headquarters is there. And their Nara, their mark, their exclamation mark is Jai Bhavani and Jai Shivaji. So what did he do? The greatness of Shivaji Maharaj was his forts. Whenever the enemies would want to come there, they would close from inside. Durga, Surak. So Durga, she keeps us surakshit if our understanding is very clear. If our understanding is wrong, then we tend to act like Shishupal, we tend to act like Ravana, that very Durga, she has the power to trample us and keep us in the Karagraha. And the Moghasha, Moga Karmano, Moga Jnana Vichesata. Asurim Rakshashim Chaiva Prakriti Mohinamashrata. Right? What are they taking? They're taking shelter of her bewildering power. She is not bewildering, but we choose to take that bewildering power. And therefore, very interestingly, Shakti and Shaktiman in Krishna Lila also appeared simultaneously. Krishna appeared here in Vrindavan and Durga Devi appeared in Mathura at the same time. And what do you think comes us off first? Was he able to see Krishna first? No. He had the Akashvani, unembodied voice told him that the eighth son of Devaki will be cause of your death. So you get to hear about the Purusha. You get to hear from the Shastra the power of personality, the Bhagavan personality, the Ishwara personality, the Paramatma personality. But your journey towards her, towards Purusha, begins with Prakriti only. Whether when you chant the names of Bhagavan, whether it is Radha Krishna, Hare Krishna, Sita Ram, all the names, how do they begin with? They begin, even the Sri, when people call themselves Sri Biju Patnaik, I just take the name. What is that Sri? That Sri means basically the power of feminine energy. And therefore, even if somebody is practicing, Shuddha Bhakti, respecting the Prakriti is an important integral part of Sanatana Dharma. Whether you are a Vaishnava, whether you are a Shakta, whether you are a follower of Smarta Parampara, you must have seen when you do puja, when you do sankalpa, when you do Upanan samskar, when you do the samskara, Vivaha samskara, the learned Purohit, from whichever branch of Paurohitya is learned, one thing what they do is they invoke your Grama Devi. Grama Devebhyo Namaha, Ishta Devebhyo Namaha, Sarva Devatabhyo Namaha, Sarva Deva Devebhyo Namaha. Right? So there is such a beautiful integration. Therefore, Rukmini Devi, even though she wanted to marry Sri Krishna, the process of approaching Sri Krishna has to happen through her Shakti only. She herself is a Shakti. Krishna had to pick her up from Ambadevi's Mandir only, Bhavani's Mandir only. Similarly, we see that Srimati Radharani, who is her Grama Devi. Shitala Mata is the Grama Devi of Srimati Radharani in Raval. So whether you are a Devata, whether you are a Bhagavan, whether you are not, you cannot be Bhagavan, but they follow the process of the Dharma principle. Therefore, what does the Shakti Tattva do? Beginning from Grama Devi. And the concept of Grama Devi is not only concentrated to Bharat. Study the Greek literature. Study the Roman Empire. Even if you study the Arabic story, pre-Islamic, pre-Christianity in the other world, rather than exploiting your land, calling that I own this, main Bhumi Pati hu, I own this Bhumi Pati, what they would do basically, they would actually envision, right? The people who did not know the Vedas, Dharma Shastras, they visualize in their imagination, a right kind of imagination, and they created different kinds of Shaktis. And one of the Shakti, the Greek worship, was Bhumi Devi only. They worshipped the goddess of fertility. They worshipped the goddess of who would not give them any kind of disease. That is Shitala Mati, smallpox should not come. Right? So therefore, wherever you go, whichever part of the world, the all-pervadingness, generally, Grama Devi is always connected to Durga. Ishtadev is different and Grama Devi is different. So Grama Devi is nothing but concentration of your village in a form of a deity where you go and offer. Therefore, any person who grew up in the Sanatana Dharma, beyond their spiritual sadhana, what they would do when they would rise in the morning, they would offer pranams to Bhumi Devi, begging her forgiveness. Because I'm walking on you. And before resting, what they would do? Again, they would offer their obeisances. Ki, I've walked over you. So the concept of exploitation was not there. Therefore, in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna raised this question. Very interesting question he raised. Krishna, you're talking about this entire philosophy of manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuro. Constantly remembering you. That is the conclusion. I can understand. But how is it possible for me, who is in the world, who operates in the world, his life is connected to the realities, right? He's dealing with the land, he's dealing with the weapons, he's dealing with the finances. Arjuna went to collect a lot of money in the Himalayas, therefore he's called as Dhananjaya. He also represents Artha principle. Bhima represents Kama principle. Yudhishthira Maharaj represent Mukti principle, and Nakul and Sahadev represent, Dharma principle. Right. So these people, Arjuna, right, he went to collect the resources. So the point what we are discussing, whether you are Arjuna or anyone else, and in fact, for that matter, Arjuna, he married the representation, not that he married Durga, but he married the Prakriti Tattva, the extension, the part, the empowered Durga Devi. Right? Subhadra, again, Bhadrakali. Subhadra means auspicious. And very interesting, Draupadi represents Agni Tattva. She represents Shiva Tattva. So she cannot be responsible for legacy of ruling the kingdom. None of her children stayed. Everybody was consumed in the battle, in the yagya of the battle. But Subhadra's son, Parikshit Maharaj, became the king of Hastinapur. So if you study carefully all the Puranic story, understand, as Bhagavad Gita, as we were discussing, Vibhuti, Yad Vibhuti Mat Sattvam, that was Arjuna's question. How may I see you in every aspect? Now there are two things. There is a Vibhuti. What is Vibhuti means? Vibhuti means Shakti. And there is the Avatara. Avatara is again Shaktiman. Vibhuti is always Shakti. And interestingly, when Arjuna asked this question to Krishna, the question was connected because I can see you. I can see Krishna. Means Arjuna can see Krishna. But he cannot see Krishna all the time. Even for the Pandavas, Krishna was not available 24 hours in regards to giving them his personal Sangha. He did not give to the gopis also. He did not give to the Brahman Patnis also. He sent them back. He said, no, you can't stay with me 24 hours, 365 eternally. As long as you are in this world, you can do by remembrance of me, seeing me in everything. And when Arjuna asked that question, Krishna talked about his Vibhuti, spark of the splendor. So Vibhuti is the source through which we come to Avatara. Avatara, he comes to this world. He is meant for this world. But Avatara is not always there. It's time bound. Right? I can't claim, I love Krishna because I've never met him. But I could have a fascination. I can have a wow factor by seeing the Vibhuti of Krishna. Right? The Himalayan mountain is one Vibhuti. Ganga is one Vibhuti. The roaring of the lion is one of the Vibhuti. Right? The Kavya of Ushanara Kavi is one more Vibhuti. So all this Vibhuti, generally the Shakti, is manifestation of the feminine aspect of Bhagavan. And this concept, it was there among the pagan religionists. It is there among the practitioners of Sanatana Dharma. But unfortunately, in the Abrahamic religion, the concept of Devi does not exist. The feminine goddess does not exist. And that is our good fortune, right? And because it is our good fortune, we can study the different aspect. How many aspects are there about Shakti Tattva? As I said, it begins with your Grama Devi and it concludes with Ladini Shakti, Srimati Radharani. And in between, there is Shraddha Devi, there is Daya Devi, there is Vidya Devi, there is Laxmi Devi, right? There is Karuna. A different aspect of the Devis are so profound and powerful, depending upon what the market requires. You don't choose, they choose what to manifest to you, right? And therefore, we see the Shakti Mata, the Shakti Durga, like Mahishasura Mardini, like the Bhavani Talwar. Very soon, for 3 months, Shivaji Maharaj's Vaganak is coming. Right? There's another Shakti also. Through that Vagnak, he basically gave Jannat to Afzal Khan. Right? He ripped off his, where does that Shakti come from? That Shakti comes from Bhavani only. That Shakti comes from Devi only. Even Arjuna, in one of the battle in the Kurukshetra, very clearly Mahabharata mentions, to get that courage, to get that power, to get that sucking of the blood of his enemies, bathing the blood of his enemies to Mother Bhumi, Abhishek of the blood for Mother Bhumi. That time, that Mother Bhumi, what does she become? She becomes Kali Mata, she becomes Chandi Mata. Right? And then he also prayed to Mother Durga in her fierce form. Right? There are stories in the Puranas also. Rakta Bijasur. Now, Rakta Bijasur had this benediction. What was the benediction? The benediction for Rakta Bijasur was that anyone who kills him, if they bleed him, every drop of his blood should become one more Rakta Bijasur. जैसे इस खून एक बूंद के बदले में इतने सारे राक्षस बन जाएंगे. So imagine there was no way you could kill Rakta Bijasur. If you would strangulate him, he would bleed. खुद का तलवार मार सकता है because you are fighting now. So what do? So Lord Vishnu, realizing, I will not get into this, because for this you need a fierce form. So that Durga Devi, who's very pleasing in Navratri, she's decked up with different kinds of forms, representing again different aspects of her psychology for human beings, right? So that Durga Devi, which is so different from all the sattvic form of Shakti, she appeared as a Ranachandi, fierce form of Kali Mata. Tongue is wagging, red color, right, willing to devour. And she came to fight Rakta Bijasur. When she came to fight Rakta Bijasur, as every drop of his blood was falling, it's a gruesome. She would lick it. You may say, oh my God, how can she do it? That is her fierce form. What is there in the entire creation which is not consumed by the Shakti Tattva? Again, that also we see. If somebody responds to the call of nature in the open field, next morning when you go there, you will find that entire thing is dried by the power of Surya Shakti. Right? It has the power, the Shakti Tattva. If you have the right understanding, like there is a concept, the farmers in the villages, what do? They collect all the garbage, the organic garbage, vegetable refuse, sugarcane refuse, rotten fruits. Everything is placed in one area. In Kannada, we call it as tippe, kachara. So then they store it, and slowly, after 6 months to 9 months, the entire tippe, entire dirt turns into most powerful fertilizer, organic fertilizer. With some cow dung, that fertilizer becomes so powerful. When you scatter that fertilizer, it makes land so fertile and you can have better crops. Who made this? So therefore the villagers, sometimes they use this concept, Tippeli Timmappa, means Balaji. Are, how can you say like that? That is the point we are saying, that every place, every situation is managed, controlled, consumed by Devi Shakti. And therefore, her to consume the blood is nothing but transformation of her own energy only, which others cannot do. She can do it. She was licking that blood and killing that Rakta Bijasura, and she took all the blood out. That is the original halal in one sense, right? And she killed that Rakta Bijasura, finished him off, to which all the Devatas and even Vishnu and Lord Shiva glorified her. So therefore, Shakti and Shaktiman, in the Sanatana Dharma, there is no contradiction. Unfortunately, in the modern world, the Shaktas became pure Shaktas. And some of the Vaishnavas became pure Vaishnavas in regards to, I will only worship Lord Vishnu. No, you cannot only worship Lord Vishnu, or you cannot worship only Shakti, Durga Devi. Right? You may develop special affection for her. But when you understand the philosophy of Durga Devi, like Ravana wanted only Mother Sita, he lost his life. Shurpanaka only wanted Ram, Shaktiman. She lost her face. Huh? अगर कोई कहेगा मुझे केवल राम चाहिए, then you are following the Shurpanaka's philosophy. And if somebody says, I only want Durga, I don't want anybody, consciously, unconsciously, symbolically, we are trying to follow in the footsteps of Ravan. Only when Shakti and Shaktiman, just like that Brahmana, just like Hanumanji, right? Ravan performed one of the greatest crime. Imagine in Krishna Lila we see, even though Indra performed one of the greatest crime of trying to destroy the Brajbasis, but some or other, indirectly, not consciously, it was not his devotional service, it was Krishna's greatness, he gave him the credit, he brought all the Brajbasis together. Good work. He got the benefit indirectly. And on the other hand, Lord Brahma did not harm, he had no intention of harming anybody, but consciously or unconsciously separated all the Brajvasis from each other, especially all the children from the Gopas and Gopis. So Sri Krishna did not give much attention to Brahmaji. So Ravana had performed this sin of separating them. Right? Because he separated them, so then what happened? Hanumanji, when he came over, he got to know what Ram is looking for. And Sri Ram knew that Hanumanji will be the one person who will find. What did Hanumanji do? He jumped across. And after a long endeavor, he got to see the Prakriti. He got to see Mother Sita. By giving the message of Mother Sita, and carrying the Mother Sita's message back to Sri Ramachandra, the Kavi, the Vaishnava Kavi say, Hanumanji became Sanjeevani. One of the name of Hanumanji is Sanjeevani. Sanjeevani means what? Sanjeevani means giving a life energy. Amrita. Ram ko Amrit diya or Sita ko Amrit diya. He united them. Similarly, is Brahmana united. So therefore, when somebody is able to integrate Prakriti and Purusha, if one is not able to see Purusha beyond the Prakriti, then some or other is following the mentality of Ravan. Similarly, when we are worshipping Vishnu, if you are not able to see Vibhuti, Prakriti everywhere, there is some tendency of becoming Shurpanaka. I only want Krishna, I don't want anybody. And therefore, what do we study in the scripture? That the Padukas, the place where the Lord is worshipped, his birthplace, his asan, everything is another kind of Shakti. I love Krishna, but I don't do anything to do with his energy, his laws. Then what happens? Consciously or unconsciously, knowingly or unknowingly, we are basically abusing the energy of Shaktiman. But those who are able to see Shakti and Shaktiman, and the best way to see the Shaktiman, best way to see Shakti, and through Shakti see the Shaktiman, is to see his creation as it is. To see the miracle of the creation. When you walk into the forest, when you sit on the bank of a river, or when you sit close to the ocean, when you see the waves are coming, wow, what a beautiful. One of our devotee friend, Anand Gopal Prabhu, he's making a very nice concept of how to remember, Krishna all the time. But how do you remember? Rule is there, man mana bhava mad bhakto. That is the destination. How many people are able to remember all the time? Right? When the India-Pakistan match was going on, many devotees went there to watch also. Praying. Oh, something should happen. India should win. And they didn't have to pray only. Right? So, the point is, the Shakti and Shaktiman, when they are integrated, and when you approaches Shaktiman through Shakti, then it becomes very easy. And therefore, Arjuna's question is very pertinent. I can't see you all the time, Krishna. Not possible. I cannot remember you all the time, man mana bhav bhakto. But give me the process. When you give me the process, then I will be able to remember. So anything which gives an impetus to remember, where does it come from? It comes from Shakti Tattva only. Right? And therefore, to forget the Shakti Tattva and to discard the Shakti Tattva, directly going to the clear, concrete personality, Ishwara, Bhagavan, is a counterproductive for one's growth. Right? And therefore, if you study in the Dharma Shastras, you cannot have the deities of Vishnu Tattva alone. You cannot have the deities of, even in Lord Shiva's temple, one may not see Lord Shiva with Bhavani, but she is so integral part of him in that Shivalinga only. Right? What is the Shivalinga? Shivalinga is basically union of Mother Parvati and Shiva. It's a union of Prakriti and Purusha, Shiva Shakti. Only when Shiva Shakti come together, this creation grows. It manifests in the most beautiful form, so that there is a harmony between, enjoying and at the same time performing one's duties. Right. So therefore, the Shakti Tattva, whether it is Rukmini Devi, whether it is our Radharani, whether it is anybody for that matter, you want to build a temple, you want to build some holy place, you want to build something, what do you need? You need a place. And when you start doing something, one of the first person you have to invite, the first person you have to invoke is the Shakti only. Whether you go to Vrindavan, whether you go to Mayapur, whether you go to any place, even if you go to GV, there is a Katyayani temple. Right? Why like that? Because any village, for you to approach, if you only see the land, we will not invoke the Shakti Tattva. We feel, oh, this is meant for my pleasure. When you enter inside the village, through the mandir of different manifestation of Devi, Durga, Shakti, then the inner sensitivity develops. When you touch a tree also, a coconut tree, oh, she is a kalpa vriksha. Humne pedon ko, we saw trees also as mother. I've told this many times. One farmer in one village, he was teaching children how to climb a coconut tree. And before climbing the coconut tree, he spontaneously Nobody taught him. Spontaneously, it was his legacy. Spontaneously, he touched the coconut tree and went like this. I said, why? He said, Kalpa Vriksha. I can never forget that. Right? I said, this is a Kalpa Vriksha. And then he went up to pluck the coconut from the tree. So therefore, during the Dasara festival, we will see that very people who were equipped, evolved consciousness here, right? Evolved brain here, evolved consciousness here, they had developed this process of worshipping your weapons, worshipping your tarazu, worshipping your cooking instrument, worshipping your, the farmer's instrument. All right. There are so many songs in the folk tale also where a blacksmith, he finds his fire. Right? What is that fire? The fire gives him resources to grow, to make some money, to develop some, udar bharana. In that fire also, he was able to see the divinity. And therefore, Arjuna's question in the Bhagavad Gita is very pertinent. Philosophical, it is very pertinent. Psychological, it is very pertinent. Environmental, it is very pertinent. And what to speak of the stories from the Puranas, right? There are so many stories. Who allowed our Hanumanji to enter inside? She was kind of a Devi only, right? Hanumanji, otherwise entering into Lanka, it was an unpenetrable. The Israeli drones did not operate in front of the Hamas terrorist. But Ravana's palace, Ravana's city was built in such a way, Ravana told Mother Sita, he said, forget your husband coming here. There is no way he can come. Even a small flight doesn't have the freedom to choose to come in or go out. That kind of service, that kind of protection he had done, and he also had part of that is worshipping Devi for a wrong reason. But Hanumanji, because he was coming on behalf of that Parama Purusha to bring together the Parama Shakti, Sita Maya, that lady allowed you come. It was predicted you can come inside. And Hanumanji enters like a small entity and he becomes big there. And he gives the message to Mother Sita. And he gives the message to Ravan about giving up the obsession towards Mother Sita, or else he will lose his life. And that is what happens when Prakriti is exploited, misused. She knows the power. What do you think happened during COVID? Prakriti knew the art of revitalizing herself. She doesn't need to take it. It is not God made this. She is equipped. She is basically well equipped to see that, okay, you have destroyed so much. Now I will stop you from this. She stopped everyone from moving. Even the big people who traveled across here and there, sometimes doing good things, some people doing bad things, but everybody was traveling. Everybody had to be stand still. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita explains that the Maya Prakriti is very difficult to cross over. But one would take shelter of what? Taking shelter of Purusha and Purusha's niyam, his laws. When they take shelter of Purusha and Purusha's niyam, then this Prakriti and Purusha, they help us to cross over. And therefore, all the layers of Shakti Tattva, just imagine, recently I wrote that article on the Sanatana Dharma, where Shakti from the the fiercest of the form to the highest form. And therefore, approaching Devi, approaching Shakti Mata, approaching Durga, like the gopis approached, one doesn't need to do any elaborate puja. That gratitude, whenever you go to village, and if you're born, raised for many generations, even if you don't go to Bhumi Devi temple, knowing very well, oh, she was here. Because of that, the city was protected, the village was protected. People have multiple stories of how that village Devi would stop people from going through most difficult, challenging situation. I'll conclude with this. Many empires came and gone, right? Whether it is the Mughal Empire or it is the Maratha Empire or it is the Vijayanagar Empire or it is the empire of the Gandhi family, right? They have come and gone. Big institutions, they have come and gone. But there are hundreds and thousands of villages in India, right? Since time and immemorial, right? Those villages, many civilization came, they went away. They tried to say, this belongs to me, this village belongs to me. They were named after the village, but village was never named after them. आजकल चालू हो गया, right? Khanapurkar, Satarakar, right? In the Saraswat community, we find, there is an actress, Padukone. How many times she has gone? If she goes there and worships there, all the depression will go away, right? The villages were given as the surname to many communities in India so that they can go back to that village, because those villages are staying, they are sustaining since time and immemorial. Why? Because Devi is there. I will conclude. When I went to my village accidentally after almost like 30 years, right? After 30 years I went, suddenly, it was not even pre-planned. We were driving from Goa to Mangalore for some function, some program. And I called my sister who passed away recently. Where is our village? Oh, she said, it's on the highway, just 1 kilometer from the highway. When I entered inside the village and I met one of my distant relatives, and the first thing he said, after all these years, ultimately, you came looking back to your village, go and take darshan of your Devi, right? That Devi. So therefore, when you study this carefully in our Dharma Shastras, in our human psychology, then you'll understand the power of Shakti is so profound. And with that power of Shakti, she creates a stability in our life. When that stability is created, it becomes easier to perform one's samskaras, one's sadhanas, and one's dharma very nicely as a yoga student. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Like Hanumanji, you've integrated the concept of Shakti and Shaktiman so beautifully. We have a few questions. Can I request Moorji to please ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Am I audible?
Moorji, can you speak a little louder?
Hare Krishna, am I audible? Prabhu.
Yeah.
Am I audible, Govinda Prabhu?
A little louder, please.
Little louder?
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
I can't hear you. Meanwhile, we can take next question. We can fix up your system.
Yeah. Rishabhji, can you please ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhuji, I don't know the source, but somewhere I have heard that Narottam Das Thakur had rejected to worship the goddess Chandi when asked by his fellow peasant that you should worship her to be free from the prison. So at that time he said that I only want to focus the Krishna fully. So what was the reason for that? Because many people argue that it was the Abrahamic in nature. So I want to know the real reason of that.
See, you can't quote a story out of context. Narottam Das was practicing Vairagya Dharma, where there is complete exclusivity of Krishna Sharanagati. Understand? So when somebody
Okay.
has taken that kind of vows, where there is Ananya Sharanagati, living that kind of life also, living by begging, right? But if you are saying, okay, I want to follow Narottam Das Thakur, first thing is that you cannot own a house, and that too making a house in Vrindavan and buying property, right? Then you have to quote Gaur Kishore that story also, who said, how can you own something in Vrindavan? So therefore, when you are connected to this world, which is the story of most of the people, right? Therefore, Bhagavad Gita becomes your foundational reality. You cannot directly jump into the stories of Narottam Das Thakur and try to imitate. Do you are supposed to follow? Do we distribute Prarthana to the whole world, or do we distribute Bhagavad Gita to the whole world? We distribute Bhagavad Gita to the whole world. And what does Gita say? Gita talks about this principle. Right? So therefore, it is not that you start elaborate worship, acknowledge the presence of Shakti, a different aspect from Radharani to your Grama Devi, adjusting, not compromising, not changing the philosophy. That is the reality. Your Krishna is only saying you will be worshipped everywhere. No? The gopis worshipped. Amba Devi, from that place, our Rukmini Maya was taken by Krishna. Arjuna worshipped. Right? So every village, if you go to any Vaishnava community also, especially if you go to South India, they have to have some aspect of Shakti Tattva. We are not saying here you have to worship Durga only, you have to worship Chandi only, you have to worship Kali only. You have to understand the Shakti Tattva, and depending upon what is the reality, the situation, acknowledge their contribution and move forward. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Prabhuji. Can I request Morji to please ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Pranam Govind Prabhu. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Very faint, yeah.
Yeah, ask.
Okay. Prabhu, I have heard about Mother India. How, what is her connection to Lord Vishnu? Is she also the Shakti Tattva?
You read in the Mahabharata. Recently, I posted the verse from the Mahabharata, wherein the Mahabharata explains that Bharata and the Bharati, representing that same again. If the village is represented by some Devi, Grama Devi, similarly, this entire Bharata is also an energy only. Right? So therefore, we don't call it as Mother India, we call it as a Bharata Bhumi, Bharati. Both the names are there. Bharata and Bharati is there. I don't have that verse now here. But so therefore, again, conceiving that also representation of any prakriti, any matter, any physical self is represented by the external energy of Bhagavan, that is Durga. And internal thing is represented by Rukmini, Sita Maya, and all the queens of Krishna, and also ultimately it is Srimati Radharani.
Yeah, Prabhu, due to my interest in Prakritik Kheti, one of the persons appointed by PM Shriman Narendra Modi ji is Kan Singh Nirwan ji. He's from Rajasthan. He was associating or linking Mother Nature, Bhumi Devi, and Gaumata only when they go hand in hand. The Shakti Tattva
Hmm.
or the the Divine Mother, due to their blessings, human being can live a healthy life.
Hmm.
Now, due to his regional tone, I couldn't understand the subject matter he was speaking deeply.
Hmm.
He's not academically educated, but he's more educated in this scripture wise, and does Prakritik Kheti, which is not the Western Prakritik Kheti, which is oftenly people say that, organic agriculture, not that organic agriculture, but linking Mother Nature, Mother Bhumi, Bhumi Devi, Dharini Devi, and Gaumata.
Hmm.
What we can consciously get if we try to treat them properly. As we see, we are if we are not conscious about, we are, somehow or other not taking care of these three mothers. uh, Even if we are not conscious about, but somehow or other we are not taking care of these three mothers care. If we only take their care, we'll be living in bliss. That was his conclusion. All that, or that what I heard. I don't know
Yeah,
what is the science
basically,
behind it. Can you just say about the Shakti Tattva, the thing related to it?
yes. That's what. See, again, the same principle. Anybody is connected to the sensitively to Prakriti, they will understand this is not simply a matter. Even Einstein, while studying the matter, he came to the conclusion of energy. He may not have called it as Devi, but somewhere he saw when you come to the conclusion of matter or energy, then the meaning of God realization starts. So therefore, as I mentioned, I gave explanation about whether it is dirt, whether it is land, whether it is energy. Our acharyas, our rishis conceived personalities. Even the Greek people, for that matter, they may not have at all the dharmic scripture, but they conceived. It was easier. It's a common sense. Nowadays, because we don't conceive this, like somebody said in Africa, an African person said that when we were worshipping the rivers, the mountains, and the sky and the trees, our land were fertile, our land was beautiful, our land was sustainable, but we were called as primitive. And therefore, to make us advance, they gave us the Bible. And now we have the Bible, but we don't have any of these things. Because the concept of Prakriti and Purusha was conceived very deeply by the followers of folk tradition, where they are called as pagan, or those who are follower of classical, like the modern world calls it the classical or the scriptural tradition. They worship the Devi. Okay, we'll take next question. One last question. Hello?
Prabhuji, there's a question in the chat box.
Yeah, can you?
What is your take on Bali Pratha sacrifice? It is a need stroke relevant in today's time.
Bali is not basically time bound, it is eternal reality. Bali means contribution, Bali means sacrifice, Bali means dedication, Bali means commitment. Right? Vidura in the Mahabharata explains to protect one family, one should be willing to sacrifice one son. He doesn't talk about killing the child. He talks about, that's what he told Dhritarashtra also. If you want to save your family, then you basically sacrifice Duryodhan so that others can remain. So there are many stories in Bharat where the concept of giving Bali is there. A symbolical bali, a psychological bali, or for the political gain also people did that. But in regards to offering the devatas, the sacrifice of the animals, today also in Indian Bharatiya army, many regiments are there. Like recently somebody, born in a Vaishnava family, he had to do that. He had to offer chicken as a sacrifice. One may say, oh my God, how can you do it? So the Bali concept is there. Certainly, when it becomes a gratification, when you open the chains of, slaughterhouses, that is exploitation, that is a destruction, right? So therefore, yes, wherever that tradition is there, better to understand, even if you are a pure vegetarian, rather than condemning, oh my God, how they do this is not fair, this is not correct. There are tradition, and the traditions have certain significance and science behind that. And the science is this: the world does not function unless there are people who are willing to sacrifice, right? Yes, certainly when Bali, becomes a commercial reality, you buy a bakri, and then feed it, and then slaughter in lakhs and lakhs, or you kill the goat or you kill the chicken, right, in lakhs, then that symbolism, when it becomes a ritual, then it becomes exploitation, stupidity, and blind following. We have to understand the purpose of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Last question it is there. I heard that one must do samarpan the self to any one god. So how to actually do bhakti? Like, shall we samarpan ourselves to all gods? Again, we have to understand respecting the devatas and performing sharanagati are two different things. When you go to work, you may have a boss. You don't surrender to your boss. You work with your boss. You only work with your boss as much as it is required. You respect your boss as much it is required. Devatas do not want to replace, the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan. Oh, instead of worshipping him, you worship me. Rather, all the devatas are part of Vishnu's family. They are all extension of different limbs of Bhagavan. Therefore, respecting for their contribution is not Sharanagati. Sharanagati is connected to the Supreme Brahman, right? And if you are not able to say, I don't believe in one God, I don't accept that Krishna himself is God, like there are people who say, I just surrender to the moment. Karma yogis, not necessarily they may have name for their God, but they say, I just surrender to this moment. I'm not attached to what is the future. I just perform my duty. One of the politician, Annamalai, he mentioned this very nice point. They asked him, do you want to be future prime minister? He said, no, I don't think like that. He said, I just surrender to Panchabhutas, Prakriti ke saath mein rehte hue, surrendering to today's duty, Karma Yoga, right? Being in the present. That is what that Eckhart Tolle wrote a book, taking the concept from Bhagavad Gita only, ultimately at the end of the day, the power of now, right? When you are able to do that power of now, what is Sharanagati? Ramanujacharya explained, Sharanagati means, you should not worry about what to do with your dead body after your death. इसको चंदन से जलाओ, इसको 50 लोगों को बुलाओ, इसको 500 लोगों को बुलाओ, ये मत करो, वो मत करो. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about your body after death, and don't worry about yourself after leaving this world. Where will I go? because it is not your responsibility. If you talk about Sharanagati, you are surrendered now. Where will you go? Will you go to Vaikunta? Whether you come back, that is none of your responsibility. You live with this moment for the higher cause. That is the Sharanagati also. So therefore, it is not about surrendering to multiple, understand the difference between a Devata, Bhagavan, Ishwar, Paramatma. We'll stop here. Thank you for your kind attention. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. We'll meet again next Tuesday to discuss and celebrate the wisdom of the Sera. Hare Krishna.